Takedowns can be the most intimidating part of grappling, but in this video, I'll show you how to make them easy. Here are 3 of the best takedowns for BJJ beginners.
The first takedown every beginner needs to know is a knee tap. A proper knee tap requires 3 things: an underhook, wrist control, and an off balance. Let's begin with 3 simple ways to get an underhook. The first way we're gonna look to get this underhook is with a shoulder post. I'm gonna reach with my rear hand and post my opponent's shoulder. If I don't get a response, I don't get a hand fight, I'm clear to go from my shoulder post to a collar tie. As I get this collar tie, I'm gonna step in with my rear leg and I'm gonna roll my shoulder into an underhook. Now, an experienced opponent is never gonna let you just post their shoulder and collect a collar tie. They're gonna hand fight. So as we hand fight here, I'm looking to win this battle and roll to an underhook. So the way I win this hand fight is by getting top position over his hand. So I try to cover his hand with my palm, and I'm looking to place my middle finger over his wrist bone. Once I get this, I can collect that wrist and get a little flare in the elbow. I'm just turning and flaring that elbow. Now, I'm gonna step my rear leg in to close some distance. As I take that step forward, I'm just gonna roll my elbow to the inside. Now I close distance with my head and my shoulder and collect my underhook. Now, as I look to get my underhook, my opponent might get their own collar tie first. And so as he grabs that collar tie, I need to deal with this before I move on. The way I'm gonna do that is by punching underneath the elbow and collecting. Now right here, there's too much tension for me to drop my shoulder into the pocket, so I need to loosen this up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is take a small step to the inside. As I take that step, he follows me with the collar tie and it loosens for a split second. I'm gonna loosen my shoulder almost like it's liquid and I'm gonna drop it to the inside and punch my underhook. Once I get to this underhook, the next thing I need is wrist control. My favorite way to get this wrist control is by threatening a body lock. I'm gonna threaten a punch of a second underhook. If he lets me get this second underhook, great. Typically, he's gonna hand fight before I get there. So as his hand comes close, I'm gonna roll my wrist to the inside and collect my wrist grip. Now with this wrist grip, I want you pinching with your thumb and your middle finger directly over that wrist bone to control the rotation of his elbow. Now that I have both arms controlled, I'm gonna begin my takedown. Now every great takedown begins with an off balance. Here's how to hit one for this knee tap. The first thing I need to do is get him moving. So I'm gonna use my upper body connections nice and tight, and I'm gonna move my feet so that he has to step. If I keep these tight and I move, he moves with me. Now I don't want him just stumbling all over the mat. I want to put him in position for this takedown. The way I'm going to do that is by using my upper body as a steering wheel and placing him into that footprint. So I'm going to step my rear leg back. I'm going to pull the wrist down into place as I lift the underhook up. This forces him to step that rear leg forward. Now, as I step back to force this off balance, I want to land in position to take him down. If I step back with my lead leg, I'm not going to be in position to run him down. And so instead, I want to make sure I step back with my rear leg. This puts him into position for the throw. Now let's finish this takedown with some simple mechanics. Basically, I'm just creating an obstacle and running him over it. Once I get him to step into place, I'm right in position to collect his far leg. I'm just gonna whip the wrist out and I'm gonna place my own wrist deep into the crook of his knee. Make sure you go wrist deep on this grip. If you go fingertip deep, you're likely to slip. So I've created my obstacle. Now it's time to run him over it. Now I don't need some big explosive movement. I need short, choppy steps. So I run my feet as I lift the underhook and block the leg and put him down. Now the direction of this finish matters a lot. If you drive around the back of your opponent, you're setting yourself up to be thrown. And if you drive too far in front of your opponent, it's easy for him to kick this leg back. So make sure you drive directly across this obstacle that you set up. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. The next takedown every beginner needs to know is the Spiral Walkdown. It's a low-risk option from the body lock, and it lets you keep your feet planted firmly on the mat while you complete the takedown. The first thing I need to do is get to the body lock. Once I get the underhook, I just need to deal with this secondary hand fight. If I reach overhand, I flare my own elbow, which gives him the opportunity to punch an underhook. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna keep my elbow tight to my body, and I'm gonna fight this battle underhand. After I get a hold of his wrist, I just do a slight whip out to open the pocket, and then I punch my own underhook. As I get to this body lock, I need head position with my forehead underneath his chin. I need a nice tight gable grip, and I wanna make sure that my front hand is palm up. This allows me to pinch my elbows closer together and prevents him from digging inside this body lock. If my front hand is palm down, it flares my elbow and allows him to pummel his own underhook. Once I get to this body lock, the next thing I need to do is disturb his base. My favorite way to do that is by threatening a rear shelf. I'm gonna drop my hips below his, and I'm gonna step my rear leg behind his thigh. Now I use my upper body connections, my head, and my grip to drive him over this rear leg. If he does nothing, I'm gonna take him down to the mat. Typically, he's gonna step directly over this shelf and open up his base. Now it's time to hit our takedown. I'm gonna step into a front shelf and spiral him over it. Now as I step in here, if I lead with my front leg, I'm gonna end up with a really wide base. This leaves me vulnerable and wobbly. So instead, I'm gonna look to step in with my rear leg first, and then I'm gonna drive into a shoulder width stance with my lead leg. Now as I get into my stance here, I'm looking to shelve this front leg so that it's up in the air. So I drive my lead leg in deep and I use my grip to hoist him over that leg. I really want him hopping on one leg alone. Now it's tempting as you get this shelf to just try to whip them around the corner, but if he has good balance, it's never gonna work. Instead, I need to continue walking into the pocket as I drag him down. If I walk in a pure circle, it's gonna be very easy for him to pivot with me. So instead, I need to draw a tight spiral, pulling in closer with each step. So I shelve that leg and I start to walk in a spiral. Last but not least, every beginner needs a snap down. All I need to do is get a collar tie, break his base, and whip him down. So here are 3 simple ways to get a collar tie. The first is a basic shoulder post. I'm just gonna probe his shoulder with my rear hand. If I don't get any response, I just slap on a collar tie. The next is gonna be a wrist roll. If he starts to hand fight and I can't shoulder post, I'm just gonna get to the top of his hand, middle finger over his wrist, and I'm gonna begin to roll it down and out. Once this space opens up, I'm free to slap on my collar tie. The last way I love to get this collar tie is by threatening an arm drag. So if we're in this hand fight and he's being stubborn, I'm just gonna threaten an arm drag by tapping his elbow, and as he rips it back, I get a free collar tie. Now as I set up my first collar tie, he's probably gonna want his own, so I'm just gonna stay ready, and as he reaches, I'm gonna catch to the inside of his bicep. Now that I have my collar tie, I need to break my opponent's base. Here's my favorite way. I'm gonna collect my upper body grips, I'm gonna use them to lean his weight onto his rear leg. This allows me to lighten his lead leg, and I'm gonna hit it with a cross side foot tap. I'm gonna take my lead leg, and I'm just gonna smack his lead leg out of the way. As I do that, it kicks his base out and leaves him susceptible to a snap down. As I hit this cross-side foot tap, I wanna hang heavy with my upper body. This is gonna allow me to break his posture further. Now we just need to follow through and whip our opponent down. Now don't think of it like a pull. A pull straight down, easy to resist. Instead, I want you to think of it like a whip, where your arms are loose right up until you hit the motion. So I hit my off balance and I whip. Even with the proper whip, if you pull straight down, sometimes their strong neck and back is easy to resist that motion. So instead, I want to use a circular mechanic. I'm going to draw a small circle, moving my collar tie in, down, and out. Now sometimes I can't get my opponent's hands all the way to the mat. That's all right, we're just gonna cover and re-snap. So if I get him down, but I don't get his hands all the way to mat, I'm just gonna cover with my lat, collecting a chin strap as I do, and maintaining my tricep grip. Now I'm just gonna hop back, and again, using a whipping mechanic, snap him right down to the mat. Thanks for watching. Click the link below to get the new BSF MA1 co-braided kit.